I, I, what's really going on? Bitcoin, cryptocurrency today. Going to be taking a look at Litecoin, LTC against USDT. Going to be assessing some of these key technical aspects of price action moving forward. Going to be looking at some of these pivotal levels of support and resistance. I believe we're going to be interacting with in the kind of near future here. Will we be bullish enough to find support quickly and recover from this rejection off of $400 there, or will we come all the way back down to some lower levels that we've seen kind of before? Let me know what you're doing through Litecoin, with your Bitcoin. Do you trade, do you hold, or do you just let the price action unfold? Are you selling at these kind of key levels here, or are you holding through all this sideways? What's your kind of game plan moving forward if you have one? So now I'll jump right into it to kind of assess price action that's been interacting with this kind of ascending trend line since the end of October of 2020. We have price action above it for kind of like months and months until we break downward on kind of the 21st of March of 2021 to find support around $177. Another kind of this is kind of an example of price action rallying from a key kind of buying zone, getting rejected off of a lower high, and then returning to that key buying zone, which is similar to price action in kind of the end of November and kind of beginning of December there, where we'd rally off of a key level, get rejected, and then come back down to around that key level. And so now why I bring those two examples up is because now we seem to be in this kind of most recent price action upon finding support at kind of $177 there. We rallied all the way up to $333 there, had a bit of a blow off top, resistance was found under 300, and we kind of consolidated downward. And so this is that kind of key kind of buy zone that we kind of came down to. And so upon that rejection from $333, we rallied all the way down to kind of like 225 with wicks of around near 200, which was a 32%, 32 to like 37% correction over the course of just over a week. And so upon finding support from that kind of key buying zone, we've now seen a 84% rally over the past kind of 2 weeks, over this kind of a period of 2 weeks. All the way up to $412. And so now, as prices are getting rejected from that kind of key resistance level, we are finding our way kind of back down to what I think perhaps could very well be this lower kind of buy zone here before we kind of continue upward again. And so in these kind of two previous examples of price action kind of rallying kind of upward, downward, and then downward, it takes kind of tens of days kind of thing. So we have an example of like more than 20 days of price action kind of doing that before kind of finding its way upward again. We have another example of almost 2 months of price action doing that. And so now I believe we could have another phase of price action returning to a previous zone over the course of the next kind of coming couple weeks here if we don't find support kind of very quickly. And so this correction could very well last kind of another couple weeks as we find our way back down to that kind of bearish target if we continue to get rejected off of what appears to be $300 resistance. And so there's lots going on with price action right now. Overall, still very bullish long term, although momentum does suggest that we could see some kind of prolonged sideways over the course of the next kind of week or two, or some downward kind of price action as we find support at another kind of key level. And so when we consider EngineeringRobo, along with the Fear and Greed Index, in addition to Fibugatti lines, Fibba Lamborghini, Fibba Zucchini lines, we have these kind of key areas I believe we're going to be interacting with, along with these kind of key buy and sell suggestions. And so we have the super buy to, moon, and buy 4 all coming into play in the 3rd of May or the 5th of May. There are all these buy signals coming into play. Price action closing above support, above resistance to confirm it as support, and we're looking very bullish. Although the crypto, like Bitcoin itself, kind of had a bit of an episode, and so it kind of started to cause the whole market to sell off. And so now this sell 2 printed on the 12th of May, and so that was in my previous Litecoin analysis, I suggested that this was significant enough to allow us to kind of continue some sideways or continue downward perhaps. And so kind of now recently we have this sell 4 printing, and so this could very well suggest that we could kind of continue this sideways or kind of continue downward, although there is still a moon present. So support does look like it's to be found kind of pretty soon here. And so I would like to think support can be found around the 0.618 line at $264, which was a kind of short-term bearish target that I suggested we could pull all the way back down to in my previous kind of Litecoin analysis. And so based on these kind of current sell suggestions, I I believe perhaps price action could find its way kind of above 264 and under 300 for a period of time before we interact with this kind of like slapping and shoving zone above 300 and just under 334. Price action closing above 334 is ultimately very short-term bullish. If we were to kind of recover that quickly, that would be above that 0.786 line at 330. And so, like I said, lots going on for Litecoin. And so, I mean, if we do continue to get rejected and we do fall through that 0.618, I see price action interacting with my kind of lower kicking and shoving zone here above $200, like lows of 205 to just under 225 is kind of a range that we could bottom out in, and that was a key kind of buying zone in our previous kind of pullback and pump. And so, if we consider the price of Litecoin against the price of Bitcoin, we have what appears to be nothing but bullish price action, in my opinion. And so, I mean, we have prices rallying up, bouncing in between this kind of slapping zone here up below 51.18 Satoshi, and then above my support at 45.11 Satoshi. We traded sideways toward it in a kind of over a period of a couple weeks there. Just about like 20 days before rallying and blasting all the way through that slapping zone of 51.12 and under 56.30, we rallied all the way up to my next resistance at 67.02, 67.09 rather, Satoshi. And so with that, with this wick, this higher high relative to wick on the 10th, this higher high does seem quite short-term bullish, and we could very well start closing above 67.02 as support. That would be ultimately very short-term bullish, and we could find our way continuing to some higher highs very quickly here. And so my next resistance is going to be around 89.23 Satoshi. And so does this seem to be the kind of key range that we could find ourselves interacting with in the kind of near coming weeks here, as support is likely to be found kind of somewhere soon here, as we are still coming out of that kind of rejection. Some prolonged downward or sideways is to be expected, as Bitcoin is still in a very volatile state at the moment, and there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the market. There's going to be a lot of volatility kind of moving forward over the next kind of few days to the coming weeks. Although, like I said, price action is looking very bullish against the price of Bitcoin. And so when we consider these Fibba Zucchini lines along with EngineeringRobo, we can see price action looking even more bullish. We have the buy 2, buy 4 moon all coming back in at the beginning of April kind of thing, all to confirm support, blasting through this 200 daily moving average, and we're now finding support along these key Fibba Lamborghini lines. And so I suspect price action to trade what appears to be a range above this 0.382 line at 62.44 Satoshi and the 0.236 line at 69.57 Satoshi. And so that is just on either side of my 67.03 resistance line. And so I do believe price action bouncing between these two Fibonacci levels seems to be a likely scenario that could play out kind of moving forward. Failure to hold that 0.382 line at 62.44 Satoshi, we could find our way down to the kind of top of my slapping and shoving zone, correlating with the 0.5 line at 56.65 Satoshi. And so we have some kind of key local kind of like bearish kind of short-term targets that we could consolidate down to if we were to interact with some more resistance here and find our way sideways. But like I said, price action closing above my support there at 67.03 is very bullish. Even though we're still looking very, very bullish long-term, we can get more short-term bullish upon closing above my support line there. So when we consider the price of Bitcoin against USDT, we can see the ridiculousness that is this rejection, this big sell-off, this break upward, retest, and continuation downward that I was suggesting could very much play out. And so, I go with the kind of flow of the market. And so, I mean, as much as I want Bitcoin to go to the moon, you kind of have to go with where Bitcoin wants to go at the pace that it wants to go at. And so, in several different analyses, whatever the plural is for that, I was suggesting price action consolidating upward in this manner, breaking downward, coming back. We saw very significant resistance around 57K, even though we had this buy 2, super buy 4 coming into play, suggesting that we could finally break upward and interact with that kind of zone there around 58 and 59. 57.6 was ultimately the resistance that kept us breaking downward. And so funnily enough, we had that fundamental news coming out as well, kind of with that break downward at technical resistance, and so they just correlated very nicely with each other, and which is what allowed that aggressive kind of break downward. And so, I mean, if you were following the news, this might seem sudden and quite jarring, but if you're following the technicals and the kind of patterns behind it, you might have seen this coming back in perhaps the end of April, even. And so now we are making our way down to that 0.618, 41.5. I suspect that to be our kind of local bottom. I suspect this to be our kind of final buying opportunity before we rally and make our way up. I suspect resistance to be found at 46K, and then I have a resistance line at 48K. And so, I mean, I do believe 46 to 48K to be a rather significant, perhaps, slapping zone that we could interact with in the kind of near future here, and price action is going to need to solidify prices closing either above or below, in my opinion. So that's going to be a large kind of range that we're going to have to kind of find our way through when we get up to it. We're likely to bounce, like I said, off of this 0.618 line, 41.5, and kind of see resistance around 46K rather soon here. So there's lots going on with Bitcoin. I'm so bullish long term. We do have this sell 2, sell 4, and super sell kind of coming back into play with that huge, $10,000 like candle close downward. And so that was a very, jarring break downward for probably many new traders getting into Bitcoin and accumulating during this kind of ridiculous sideways above 50K and under 60K, thinking that was a good bottom to accumulate, but turns out to be a local top at the moment, and we're finding some key accumulation levels down at these lower figures here. And so there's never a bad time to buy Bitcoin. There's only better times to buy Bitcoin, and so I believe we're looking at some of the best times to buy Bitcoin at the moment, as support is very close. Thank you for hearing my analysis. Thank you for tuning in. Try EngineeringRobo free with a link in the description. Subscribe here on YouTube. Check out all the other social media down below. Let me know what you're doing with your Litecoin, your Bitcoin. Do you trade? Do you hold? What is your kind of strategy moving forward? Are you more of a buyer and holder, or are you more of a very technical trader and sniper scalper? Do you look for the exact price to enter and exit, or do you just press and hold and hope for the best? Let me know what you're doing moving forward. Thank you for tuning in, and tune in for the next one.